Hello students, welcome back to your grammar classes. Today we look into the unit 11 of your module 4. So this is the second unit in your module 4, and here we deal with the outline story, how to write outline stories, or how to actually expand um into a complete story with the outlines that are being given within brackets, or like sometimes you need to fill in and expand it into a wonderful story, and sometimes you will be given some sort of connecting links or points by which you need to expand it to an outline story. So similar to the dialogue writing, this also might be asked for your paragraph questions. That means the 4 mark question. So be mm, like let us look into the narrative tactics that you need to focus on while writing an outline story. Okay, so what do you mean by basically what are stories? Stories are narratives that need creativity and imagination. Of course, you will be bringing in so many factors which are unrealistic and creative and imaginative. Often you have a tendency to mix up some sort of fantasy into it. So all these brings some sort of what we can say some sort of novelty to your stories. Okay, so it's all about how you practice to narrate it. Everybody likes stories, you, me, and everybody. While the plots of all stories follow a basic pattern of conflict and resolution of conflict, it is the strength of their imaginative and linguistic components that makes all the difference. Of course, you know that the storyline will be the same mostly, but the basic pattern of, because you know that definitely there will be a problem within the story, and it will be about how the hero or heroine or whoever are placed as major characters are overcoming that problem. Mm, and only thing is that the geographical locations, the setting, the situations by which the story is woven, the complexities with the events that are being described or narrated, or the complexities of the problems they need to deal with and find the solution. That is the basic pattern of conflict and resolution of conflict is the same. Okay, there will definitely be a conflict in the sense some problem within the story, and how this problem is being resolved is will be the crux of the story. That is how stories are being written. Okay, so it is the strength of their imaginative and linguistic components that makes all the difference. Of course, your imagination can do wonders. Of course, as I told you, some fantasy elements will add some more brownie points to it. Then linguistic components, your language abilities gives it perfection. That makes all the difference. Outlining a story is to create a layout of its basic points in such a way that full-fledged narratives can be fleshed out by filling in the gaps. Okay, outlining a story is to create a layout of its basic points. In the question paper, you will be given the basic points, and you what you need to do is that you need to bring in a full-fledged narrative, full-fledged story, which can be fleshed out by filling in the gaps. You will be having some sort of here and there you are getting some words and you need to fill in. Now, the points you need to remember while you expand these or while you try to develop a story from the all these points that are being given. Okay, first point is that the outlines must be read carefully. Of course, otherwise you won't get it. First of all, it is only an outline, like bits and pieces. So you need to like read it carefully and look into it carefully, where you can put in your imagination, where you can use your creativity well, what all things you need to bring in. Also, definitely you should look into the marks, whether it is for 4 marks or whether it is as an essay 15 marks. Then you need to write a long story. That means 15 mark essay means a long story. So definitely you should look into, okay, how much marks are being assigned to it. That is also one point which is outside the realm of common writing thing. Anyway, Second point, the story being written from the outlines should follow a descriptive pattern. Definitely, because when you tell a story, the narrative technique we follow is descriptive. Not like you won't create a story in the same way you write a news article, right? You will be a little bit informal. You'll try to make it kind of um, entertaining, especially for the readers. So it won't be, and uh, of course, you don't have to bother about the facts, factual check. There is no need of factual check in that. So definitely you will be following a descriptive pattern. You won't say that simply, okay, Raju lived in that house in you won't be giving a plain thing like this. You'll be kind of describing the house. It is a beautiful house, and it is in a location where people will like actually desire to live in, like that you will be telling something, you know. The story being written from the outline should follow a descriptive pattern. A brief sketch of all the characters is advisable. For example, Amit, the landlord's son, was standing in the garden. Simply telling that Amit is standing in the garden, and there is a difference in describing or giving information about who this Amit is. Amit, the landlord's son, was standing in the garden. That makes the theme more interesting. Supplementary narratives can be incorporated imaginatively. Of course, you can add a bit of supplementary narratives anytime as you please. Supplementary narratives can be incorporated imaginatively, depends upon the time and the kind of creative things, stuff that are coming to your mind. Supplementary narratives means sub-narratives other than the main narrative of a hero or heroine or the major characters. You can add minor uh, episodes of some of the minor characters in the suppose for example, suppose you are writing a story about a king and queen. You can bring in a kind of interlude, like you will be talking something about the gardener in that place with some sort of, like, you know, interesting remarks about like, or you can talk about the jester over there. You can talk about, share some sort of jokes that are shared by him. uh, so that will actually, if you are talking about a king and queen and the war, that will kind of, you know, make the atmosphere more interesting, whole atmosphere more interesting, and people will be curious to read. Okay, so supplementary narratives can be incorporated imaginatively. Then next point, an interesting and appropriate title must be given to the story. That's very important, because title, it carries marks. For the title, it carries marks, and also it is compulsory that for an outline story you should like put in some sort of title. Okay, so that is a compulsory point. You shouldn't forget to add the suitable title for the outline story. Okay, so now let us look into the points one again. The outlines must be read carefully. The story being written from the outlines should follow a descriptive pattern. A brief sketch of all the characters is advisable. Supplementary narratives can be incorporated imaginatively. An interesting and appropriate title must be given to the story. Okay, so these are the major points that you need to keep in mind while you try to develop an outline story. Now, let us look into an example. It is a sample exercise that is given in your textbook. Young girl Miriam loved climbing trees, climbed neighbor's tree, plucked mangoes. Neighbor complained, parents warned her, she did it again. Neighbor chases, builds fence, girl sad, finds another tree near lake, climbs very high. Neighbor drowning, she screams, saves neighbor sorry. So you got an idea, right? So it is something about a stories about a young girl, Miriam. She is very much interested in climbing the trees. So once she climbed the neighbor's tree to pluck mangoes. Of course, the neighbor was angry and complained to her parents. Neighbor, but she never bothers to listen. And the neighbor chased her once and builds a fence, and she was sad that she couldn't actually climb a tree. And of course, the rest uh, climax part. Rest is the climax part that we'll read and see what it is. The rest part actually you can use a little bit of imagination. Until this, the context should remain the same, so you shouldn't actually move far away from the context. This is the context, the basic context you need to, or pattern you need to follow while expanding this story. That is what I told. Miriam, a young girl, loves to climb the trees. She used to climb neighbor's tree to pluck mangoes, and she was being warned, or the neighbor complained to her parents, and but she again repeated it. What happened? So this pattern should be the same for all. You shouldn't move away from the basic context or basic premises in which the story is being built, and then you can definitely use your imagination. So now let us see how this story goes. And the author has actually given an interesting title, The Girl Who Climbed Trees. Let us look into it. Once there was a young girl called Miriam. She loved to climb trees. It made her feel adventurous. She would spend hours sitting in trees, making friends with the birds and squirrels that nested in the branches. Her favorite tree to climb was the mango tree that grew in her neighbor's garden. So here you can see the fourth sentence. She would spend hours sitting in trees making friends. Here you can see the narrative technique of storytelling is being used. That is the descriptive pattern which we follow while writing a story. That is why those extra informations, because those information are not there in the question, right? So you can see that additional information that is being given. Anyway, her favorite tree to climb was the mango tree that grew in her neighbor's garden. Mr. Lal, her neighbor, did not like children, and he definitely did not like children who climbed his trees and plucked his mangoes. But this did not deter Miriam in the least. But this did not stop Miriam in the least. Deter means stop. She would climb the tree and spend her afternoons perched on the branch, eating the juiciest of its mangoes and reading books. She is kind of naughty, so she continued doing it. And of course, another thing I would like to tell you is that this division of paragraphs. Don't make the whole thing into one paragraph, a kind of packed writing, which makes people difficult to read and understand. So proper paragraph divisions should be there according to the your logic as well as the kind of descriptions you are giving. Okay. So this breaking of breaking of the whole thing into small paragraphs is also important for a better reading experience. One day, Mr. Lal went to pluck the mangoes and found Miriam and her brother Philip sitting in the tree. He pulled them down and complained to their parents. Miriam's parents were extremely angry and warned her never to do such a thing again. They decided to give their children a lot of extra maths problems to solve so that they would have no time to go climbing trees. After a few days, Miriam finished her task quickly and went for a walk along the river. She found a wonderful tree that was tall and had many branches and immediately climbed it. So now she can't actually go to that neighbor's place. So she walked along the river and found a wonderful tree with many branches, and she climbed it. She could see her entire village from the top. Suddenly she noticed movement in the river and looked intently. It was Mr. Lal, that same neighbor who complained about her. She was caught in the current and was he was caught in a current and was drowning. Miriam yelled at the top of her voice. Her screams alerted the villagers working in the nearby fields, and they ran to rescue Mr. Lal. Later that day, Mr. Lal went to Miriam's house and thanked her for saving his life and told her that she could stay in the mango tree for as long as she wished and pluck the as many mangoes as she liked. So it is a very happy ending story. So I hope you got the point. So happy ending or sad ending, or all those things actually you can decide on your own according to your creativity. You are free to do it. It is not always necessary that it should have even you can even think about open-ended stories, like some movies and stories actually the climax will be a little bit of open open-ended kind, where the audience or readers can decide or think of what will happen to the characters. Similarly, in here also you have that choice to decide upon yourself anyway. So I hope you understood how this is to be written, where a lot of description should be there, and a little bit detailed description of the characters will help. And another thing is that what you can you should break it into paragraphs. That makes reading more comfortable and interesting. And also, never forget to put a title for your story. That is another important thing. So all these things you should keep in mind while writing an outline story. Okay. Now let us look into another interesting example. So this story, it's about some stray kitten, it seems. Yeah, stray kitten, Abraham, boy, best friend, deaf, boy took it to school, teacher scolded, kitten sent back home, wait every day for the boy. Boy goes to the grandmother's house, flood, kitten trapped, days pass, boy cries, parents worried, flood subside, everyone rushes home. Kitten finally found shelf, lots of fish, boy happy. So I hope you got an idea. It's about some stray kitten and a boy who saved the stray kitten. So the title goes like this: Abraham and Tutu. Definitely Tutu might be the kitten's name. 5-year-old Abraham found a tiny kitten lying curled up on the steps of his house. It had white and black patches and a star-shaped mark on its forehead. Abraham carries the kitten inside and showed it to his mother Elizabeth. She let him keep up. He decided to call the kitten Tutu. They were inseparable. Soon, Abraham understood one thing: Tutu was deaf. His parents were amused as no one has heard of a uh, deaf cat. But this made Abraham even more protective of the kitten. He wanted to protect Tutu from all the dangers she could not hear approaching, such as dogs and other big cats. He decided to start taking her to school too. One day, the teacher opened his bag to take a book and found Tutu looking at her. Abraham's parents gently explained to him why doing this was a bad idea and he had to leave Tutu at home again. She would faithfully wait on the doorstep for him to return from school. So you can see how beautifully the story has been woven. One day, the family decided to go visit Abraham's grandmother in Kochi. They were to return after 2 days, so they left enough food for Tutu, locked her in a room and left. That was when the devastating floods hit Kerala. They were unable to return home. Abraham constantly cried, thinking of his poor kitten, who must surely have drowned. The reports all said that his area was under water too. Gradually, the floods receded. It had been 2 weeks by then. The family rushed home. Abraham ran into the house before anyone could stop him. He called out for Tutu, but of course she could not hear. His father Ajay opened the door of the room expecting to see the remains of the cat, but to their surprise, she was there on a high shelf eating fish that had been trapped in the room. Boy and kitten were reunited. So you can see how this bits and pieces of the passage has been woven into such a wonderful story. Okay, so now you have got two practice exercises also that you can try by yourself before appearing for your exams. Definitely you will be getting some another strange passage, but of course a little bit of practice will always help. So please try working out these two outlines that are given. Try develop a story from the outlines that are given here. Okay, I'll just give you clues. First question: Abhinav, very studious, first in class, annual day prize for rank, very excited Function at 4 p.m. next day. Spends whole afternoon ironing uniform, polishing shoes, falls asleep, wakes, looks at the clock. It is 6:30, late, cries, dresses, runs out of house, dark, scared, no traffic, walks on the way, meets milkman and paper boy, realizes it is morning and not evening, feels silly, walks back. So hope you understood. Abhinav has got a prize on that particular day for his rank, and it comes in the next day 4 p.m. So was quite excited about the idea. Of course, anybody will be excited to receive some kind of award or prize, and so he was preparing himself to how to go next morning. And so he afternoon itself he started ironing the clothes, keeping things ready for tomorrow, that day after tomorrow, and looks at the and suddenly later he falls asleep, suddenly looks at the clock, and it is 6:30, and he cries. Of course, he thought that it is evening 6:30 and the program is already over. There are two ways of ending. You can either give it that way, or either you can actually give it as a dream. His dream of he dreamt of that this okay, it is already evening 6:30 and the program is over, and he might have woke up to like morning, and he finds himself to be silly like that. Anything according to your creativity, anything you can write. Anyway, second one. Discussion between vegetables. All claim to be beautiful: carrot, tomato, brinjal, aubergine, cauliflower. Humans praise their beauty, sad to cut them. Look at onion, says it is ugly. Onion very sad. Goes to God, asks why created. God smiles, says onion important. Onion not happy. No, if no one cares to look at it. No one feels sorry to cook it. God gives boon, onion cut, people shall cry. So that is about, like, you can include some sort of fantasy elements into it, where the vegetables are talking to each other, and you can expand according to your creative stuff that comes to your mind. Okay, so hope you enjoyed the session. There is one more uh, example you need to look into, that is more interesting. A popular folk myth kind of thing. Prince, very romantic, ministers looking for a bride, does not want an arranged marriage, runs away from home, wants to find love of his life, wanders around, does not like anyone, rests near a river, meets a frog. It says, actually a princess, cursed to be a frog, true love's kiss, life curse, romantic prince happy, kisses frog, says thank you, placed bet, you will kiss me, I won. Other frogs laugh, prince feels foolish, goes back wiser. So like that. Here also you might have got the idea. This is a popular myth you might have come across while reading things in your school classes. Here also all these fantasy elements are there, magical realism element is there. So try writing it. Hope the session was kind of interesting because of the different kinds of story that we come across. Okay, so go work by yourself and try writing down the exercises and prepare well. Okay, thank you all.